They planted a sign in my front yard on a Tuesday morning. Bright orange, bold letters. Community property. HOA improvement zone. No notice. No vote, no conversation. Just a sign claiming my land like it was always theirs. What they didn't know was that I had spent 11 years quietly preparing for exactly this moment. And I was about to freeze every single dollar they had. Before we continue, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments right now. My name is JR. I bought my house on Elmwood Circle back when the neighborhood was still just trees and ambition. The HOA didn't even exist yet. I was one of the original 12 homeowners who agreed to form it. I helped draft the original bylaws. I attended every single meeting for the first 4 years. Then life got busy. I pulled back, let others steer. That was my first mistake. By the time a woman named Brenda became HOA president, the board had changed entirely. New faces, new energy, new agenda. Brenda was a retired city planner with a taste for development and zero tolerance for what she called residential clutter. Overgrown hedges, mismatched mailboxes, cars parked at the curb. Anything she didn't like became a violation. She handed out fines the way other people hand out business cards. I kept my nose clean. My yard was clean. My property was maintained. I thought I was invisible to her. I was wrong. The sign appeared on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, a surveyor was walking my front yard with a clipboard. I stepped outside and asked him what he was doing. He handed me a business card and said, "You'll need to speak with the board." That was it. That was all he gave me. A card and a dismissal. I called the number on the card. Voicemail. I sent an email to the HOA management office. Auto reply. I drove to the board's next meeting and sat in the back row, waiting for someone to explain why my lawn had been claimed as community property for a streetscape renovation project worth $230,000. Brenda looked right at me and said, "JR, we notified all affected residents by certified letter. I never received a letter." She smiled. "That's not our problem." But that wasn't even the worst thing she said that night. She pulled out a document, held it up. Said the board had voted to reclassify the front 10 feet of several properties along Elmwood Circle as a shared aesthetic corridor under a clause in the revised bylaws that had been amended 14 months ago. Voted on, approved. And I had never seen the amendment. Nobody had told me about it, or so I thought. I went home and dug through every piece of mail I had kept over the past 2 years and buried in a stack of junk mail. I almost threw away. I found it. It's a certified letter notice card. The one I never picked up from the post office because it looked like a coupon mailer. I had signed nothing, claimed nothing. The letter had gone back to sender after 15 days. Technically, I had been notified. Technically, I had forfeited my right to object. A contractor was scheduled to break ground in 9 days. Here's where most people would call a neighbor. Post on social media, write an angry letter to the board. I didn't do any of that. I called my cousin Mark, who had spent 22 years as a municipal land use attorney in 3 different states. I told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "JR, tell me exactly what the bylaw amendment says about the corridor classification." I read it to him, word for word. Another silence. Then he said, "They forgot something. The HOA had reclassified the land, but they had never filed an updated plat with the county. In the state where I live, any reclassification of private residential property into a shared use corridor requires a recorded amendment to the subdivision plat, filed, stamped, and acknowledged by the county assessor's office. Without that filing, the reclassification was legally unenforceable. Not just disputed, unenforceable. The sign in my yard had no legal weight at all. But I didn't call Brenda, not yet. I let the contractor show up, let them unload equipment. Let Brenda walk the street with her clipboard on day 1 of the project, pointing at stakes in the ground, talking about pavers and lighting fixtures and irrigation design. I watched from my front porch with a cup of coffee and said nothing. And then, on the morning of day 2, a county building inspector showed up at the project site, followed by a second inspector, followed by a woman in a gray blazer carrying a leather folder who turned out to be a representative from the county assessor's office. The project shut down within 40 minutes. Brenda was on my porch within the hour. Her voice was controlled, but her hands weren't. She said, "You called them?" I said I filed a routine inquiry with the assessor's office about the plat status of my property. "That's my right as a property owner," she said. "You just cost this neighborhood a $230,000 project," I said. "No, your board did that when they forgot to file the paperwork." She started to say something else. I opened my front door and walked inside. The project didn't just pause, it collapsed. The contractor had a hard deadline tied to a municipal grant the HOA had applied for, a grant that required construction to begin and reach a milestone within a specific window. When the county freeze hit, that window closed. The grant evaporated. $230,000 in funding. Gone. Not delayed. Gone. 3 board members resigned within the week. Brenda lasted 2 more months before calling a special election and stepping down. And here's the part nobody in that neighborhood expected. When the new board took over, they reached out to me, asked if I would be willing to sit in on a few meetings, help them understand the original bylaws, the ones I helped write before any of this started. I said yes, because here's the truth. I didn't blow up that project because I was angry. I did it because the moment someone plants a sign on your land without your consent and tells you it's not their problem, the only thing left to do is make it their problem. My front yard looks exactly the same as it always did. And every morning when I walk out to get the paper, I look at that spot where the sign used to be and I think, some fights aren't about revenge, they're about record. So let me ask you this. Someone tried to take 10 feet of your property and smiled while doing it. What would you have done? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.